Hey everyone, I have Mladenovski with me from Shuffle Digital. Thank you so much for joining, Dayan.
More than welcome, mate. More than welcome. Happy to be here.
It's been it's been awesome to watch your journey from chasing us around SEO meetups around Sydney to seeing you do your thing and what you're very passionate about. You are my equal in terms of energy, my friend. I haven't seen if there's anyone that's got more energy than me, it's certainly you. And
Oh,
I, and
mate.
I,
Take that
That's
as a
been awesome.
compliment.
No, mate, it's been a pleasure watching you and learning from you. And before we start, I'm gonna plug you as well for the SEO Sydney conference before I forget, because I
Yes.
promised our mutual friend James Norquay that I was gonna plug it for him.
We got to do it. Got to do it. It's the biggest conference of the year, right?
Biggest SEO conference of the year, being hosted by our good friends over at Prosperity Media, and one
Yes.
of the guest speakers is Dayan. So make sure you get your tickets, and what we'll do, we'll put the link to where you can buy the tickets later on. So thanks, mates. How's your week been? What have you been up to?
Oh, mate. Just another eventful week in SEO, right? The way I like to see it is every day is another day in SEO paradise. So our week's been very technical, I guess, this week you can say. Been diving deep into some programmatic, looking for opportunities, gaps. That's sort of what I've been looking at, dealing with a few technical issues as well with SEO. But overall, mate, you know how it is, just doing my thing. Nothing extravagant to say except the BAU. But sometimes it's the best way, right? Sometimes in SEO, what you don't want the massive swings, which I'm sure we've all had to deal with once or twice in our career.
Well, especially like when you get new clients that one client that I've received where we had worked with him for about 3 months, and I knew there was problems with the content, but we kind of let it slide a little bit longer than probably what I should have. And that December rollout came because obviously the previous SEO just put the content there for no other purpose but for SEO, and that just
Yep,
got completely devalued. So we had the best month in November, and then December came, the algorithm hit right when I was going on holidays.
yep.
And he's like, "Why is the rankings dropped off?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we, I know for sure what it is." I said that, but yeah. So when we have updated and changed the content, the rankings are recovering. So,
Yeah.
so what are you sort of noticing in the recent updates, and how does that tie into programmatic SEO?
I think just in general, off the back of that, I think like SEO is just getting harder.
It's
I,
getting
I
much
I
harder.
think I think like gone are the days where exactly as you said, you can slap up a couple of landing pages for keywords that maybe the business didn't have, and pop up you go to the first page, maybe to position 9 and 10, and add a few links, and up they go to 7 and 8. It is getting very tough, and it's not just because the market's bigger, there's a lot more people doing it, and of course SEO being a zero sum game that it is. It's just there's a lot of SERP features going in, right?
Mm-hmm.
The real estate that we once had, maintaining the same positions is no longer sustainable, because maintain the same position and what you'll see is a gradual decline in clicks over time. So I think just as a whole, SEO is getting more challenging. Um, to the contrary, though, I think like I've been playing quite a bit with like large language models and optimizations. I think there's an opportunity there, for people that can crack it, but definitely from what I've seen, the people that are already performing well in organic, it's a huge crossover with the people that are performing well in large language models. Just on the basis of, they already have these large established link profiles, they're already authorities built up maybe over, several years, potentially decades. Um, and I think, yeah, I think it's probably a good base. I think it's just getting more difficult. I think like, a lot of clients recently have come to me as quite a few people have, or their current providers have just said, look, we've tried everything and we can't get growth. I've noticed that first time in my career. Quite a lot of people are just being transparent about it, saying, we've done everything we can, but we just can't seem to move the needle. I think that's something that I found quite interesting over the last 6 months. I have not seen it like that before. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. That's spot on. I think it's for a couple of reasons. A lot of the work is just not great. I mean, I've been pulled into basically another big agent, another big client is hiring us just to review agency. They just want a second opinion on three, because
Yeah,
basically the company they're working with is an American company, has acquired three Australian, there's many more to come, Australian companies, and I'm there responsible to sort of oversee some of this agency work because I don't really necessarily want that type of work full time at the moment,
yeah,
for resource reasons, and it's not very good. Down, it's people using disavow files. When they don't have a manual action. Two, half the URLs on the disavow file don't even exist anymore. And C, there's some actually legit URLs on there. And then obviously there's a few URLs that were spammed, which every site has. You know, those sort of directories, spammy
scrapers.
directory bots. Yeah, it's just scraper sites. And they just submitted that for 3 months worth of work. And I'm thinking, like, so I mean, I don't know the necessarily the history with the clients that have come to you and saying we've tried everything. Normally, when they've tried everything, they haven't technically tried everything.
Yeah,
What they've done. They think they've tried a lot because they've gone from agency to agency. But a lot of these agencies have sort of their ways of doing things, and they're not necessarily too adaptable to what happens specifically within what you need to do is maybe uniquely to a certain industry. Um, so yes, I'm finding it, but I'm also finding the fact that there's not a lot of great work being done.
yeah,
And I mean, if you're not doing digital PR, you're not getting into that branding component of SEO. And I think why SEO is also much difficult now is you've actually got specialties within SEO, and
correct.
so different companies will need different things, but everyone needs digital PR and branding. Anyone can, and like you said, the bar in which to compete is getting a lot higher. And I don't think necessarily the competitors are getting better. I just think that that Google's favoring actual brands
Yep, authority
versus
sites.
correct and topical authority, and understanding the signals between brand mentions, social signals. Like, why would you be growing just on some links and then you're not growing anywhere else? No one's talking about you.
Yeah.
No one's mentioning you on Twitter.
Do you
This
know?
is hard. This is much harder to game.
I'm gonna carry that conversation on. I want to lean into that because what the common denominator I've personally seen, just to give you a bit more context, is the link profile. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everything's been maxed out from a content perspective. I feel like the content's actually maybe been done to a decent standard. Website's quite good. It's got CRO, optimizations completed. It's clear that if we're purely looking at the site, we're looking at the technical fundamentals of it. And we're looking at the content build out, the topical authority build out of the site. I'm not seeing that is what is the issue with most sites. I am really seeing, and this is like it's more often than not the link profile, and just the lack of quality links in the link profile, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think when you drill down into like, I've seen this countless times. Like this is generally the number one reason I see most sites not ranking. That come to me and say, what we want to perform better. Generally, the number one reason is the link profile, particularly for like
Mm-hmm.
SMB type businesses. And the reason for that is if you actually drill down into it, if we're looking specifically at links that I would consider that move the needle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what am I talking about? To give viewers a bit of context, I'm talking. If we're just using Ahrefs metrics here for
Mm-hmm.
argument's sake, let's say we're talking at least a DR12, a page that is at least talking about this. At least the page is talking about the subject of the site, or the whole entire site is about that topic, where the
Which is
domain
better.
traffic is at least 500, where there isn't 100 outlinks going from that page diluting the site, where the domain the ratio of the domain is incoming links to outgoing links isn't crazy. So it doesn't have 1,000 referring domains to it and then linking out to 20,000 sites. You want to see a more
Mm-hmm.
balanced ratio, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you start drilling in and you start filtering out all the sites that don't meet that criteria and that do meet that criteria, and you overlay it with what their competitors might be doing, um, I'm seeing that as the biggest problem. And I think it's a funny thing, right? Like you talked digital PR, branding.
But if
I
no one's
think,
talking
yeah,
about you, Daya, sorry to cut you off,
no,
just
go ahead.
quickly, if no one's linking to these clients, maybe because they just suck. That's partly a reason. It's not always the only reason.
It's not the only reason.
It's not the
Um,
only reason. But if you're not thinking about how to get people to talk about you, especially in competitive niches, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Well, let's go back to basics, right? What's Google even trying to do? What are they trying to do? Like, in my perspective, they're just trying to take the offline world online. And,
Correct.
before the time of Google, how would a cafe around the corner fill up? Well, it'd only fill up if there was, XYZ groups of people talking about that business. Maybe
Correct.
they're saying, this is the best coffee shop, the word of mouth spreads. I think
Yeah.
all Google have tried to do with this sort of link-based algorithmic model is just take that model and shift it online. If there's enough sites talking about you, right,
Mm.
chances are you're probably a quality business. Chances are you're probably legit, particularly if it's coming from different sources. But
Mm.
just like the real world, different people's opinions on that subject matter going to hold more weight, right?
Mm.
Maybe if you go to our, friend James Lorca and ask him who a good SEO is, it's going to maybe carry more weight than per se somebody that maybe isn't in the industry, somebody that maybe hasn't got experience with it. So
Yeah.
that's a good way of looking at a link with authority and how much value it can hold. I think you're right. Like, if you look at some businesses, maybe they just haven't gone out of the way to create any link-worthy content. Maybe they haven't, maybe they do have something link-worthy, but maybe they just haven't done any outreach campaigns or got it in front of the right people.
I
Um,
mean,
other, yeah,
the Larson model of 10 years, man. Like we did. I think we had the best technical SEO in 2017, 2018. But that's not. That's I always look at technical SEO as the shell of the Ferrari, right? That you need it. It needs
yeah,
to be there. Um, and obviously, I always see technical SEO as sort of increasing the chances of improving your discoverability and visibility. With Larson, mate, if we didn't get those sorts of links, okay, so we had a strategy to get. I can talk about Larson because I don't have an NDA, but you can get the links from the magazines, the bridles. That was a strategy. Then we had a strategy to get links from when our customers got married and then they got featured. And then we had a strategy for just plain old digital PR. And when I look back on that campaign, to get obviously the site was pretty technically sound anyway. But back then the brand signals of sort of going to Google, necessarily typing in Larson Jewelry engagement rings wasn't as important as it is now. Because even when we rank first, we didn't always have the most clicks. Because the girls still wanted to see what Tiffany had to offer. So even the sweat and the tears to get first for engagement rings and wedding rings. And then even though Google wasn't tagging on the branding component, the girls still wanted to see, what does Tiffany have to offer? What does Blue Nile have to offer? What does Prouds have to offer? And so I always felt like, okay, rank brain is certainly a thing, but we kept it stable, and I don't always feel like we had most clicks, even though we were first, because
yep,
people only knew of us on the search results.
yep. I think intent plays a part there. I think for an industry like that, definitely, there's industries or there's players maybe that you see in the brick and mortar stores that maybe people are more familiar
Mm.
with. Again, word of mouth.
Yeah,
You'll see jewelries at the local large shopping mall, Westfield, etc. You'll see
yeah,
these brands, and I think you associate that product with those brands. And if you see something maybe that doesn't sort of like meet that criteria, maybe a brand you've never heard of, maybe you're more skeptical and looking for something
yeah,
that is.
yeah.
Maybe you're already predisposed to looking for that brand when you're searching
It's
that
just the
keyword.
mindset and psychology of the target market.
Correct. I think like looking
Whereas
at
most
maybe an
people would be happy to
industry.
click the first position. Sorry to cut you off, Dale.
Yeah, no,
Sorry,
no,
there's
it's
a
fine. But you're right. Like most people are inclined, and to your point, like if you're looking for an industry that maybe you don't have any sort of like brand preference, take for
mm,
example
mm,
a professional service, maybe an accountant or a lawyer. Maybe you don't have a brand in your mind, right? And so
mm,
therefore, like you're not going to be so inclined to say, okay, we're going to go with X, Y, or Z. I think their first position, I think will dominate.
mm.
But maybe in a market that does have sort of large established players, it is sometimes difficult because maybe they want to go into that store. Maybe they know,
Mm,
maybe they want to see something more in person, and it's quite difficult to do that with e-com, right? I'm
mm.
sure they'll come up with some tech to change that in the coming years, but for the moment, quite difficult. And like, yeah, I think, you know, just because you also rank first for a certain keyword, right? I think like you got to look at the whole market share in the market and like the spread of keywords sometimes. I think that's also important.
That I would argue that's probably more important.
Yeah.
I told my client that I would rather you rank, even any jeweler, even that they have a meeting with me, I would rather you rank, generate 3 to 5,000, generate basically 3 to 5,000, let's say unique users a month from long tail people coming to Google having multiple range of products and variations, 18 karat, yellow gold, engagement ring. I'm only using jewelers, so I just do a lot of work in jewelers, just easy to illustrate it, right? I would rather you generate 3 to 5,000 unique users on the website every month from long tail search. First of all, they're further down in the buying cycle. Two, they already know what they want.
Yeah.
They're probably a bit more urgent buyers. The revenue of that 3 to 5,000 is going to be a lot higher than just, maybe won't be as much traffic as ranking first for engagement rings or wedding rings. And let's say I would rather you get 3 to 5,000 long tail searches than necessarily 15,000 short keyword phrase, like commercial intent keywords.
Yep.
Versus 3 to 5,000 transactional.
I'm definitely with you.
15,000 commercial intent keywords.
Yeah, no, definitely with you. I think that's the crux of whole, like, you know, the biggest service we offer is like programmatic SEO, right?
Yes.
To your point, specialization in SEO, it's definitely where it's moving. Even in a more like niche market like Australia. You've seen this, you know, in the US market, you know, for almost a decade, right? But it is making its way over the Pacific here. And I think like, you know, programmatic SEO in that, on that point, exactly looks at that. You know, what we're trying to do is, you know, find a modifier, find a keyword, find a range, find a group, and scale these pages out and, you know, target these more higher intent buyer terms where maybe the user wants a specific sort of page targeted to what they're looking for as opposed to a generalized page. But yeah,
it's harder to rank.
Yeah,
it's harder to rank, and sometimes you can get better results. There's other ways to get. I think if you can nail the programmatic SEO, there's certainly cases to be made that can be very beneficial.
Yep.
I just think I'm seeing some people do it; they're not doing it well.
Well, this is the thing. Not every business, you know, if I had to put a number at maybe 1% to 2% of businesses might suit programmatic SEO, right?
Yeah.
And I think a good determination of if you actually think programmatic SEO is right for you is like, look at the SERPs, look at what you're trying to compete for. Like, do your competitors have specific pages for that term? Go dig deep. How much traffic are they generating from these pages? You know, how much search is available in this entire cluster? I think you can get a very, very quick answer. And if you're trying to compete with generic pages against competitors that have built out specific pages for these keywords, it is always going to be an uphill battle.
Oh, correct. And I think there's more than 1 to 2%. I mean, if you're looking at, when I was working for another client in workwear, do you know how much traffic we're leaving on the table because the accessibility on variations of the work boots couldn't get indexed? And I was on the floor crying because in a fetal position, because I'm thinking, like, you know, the colors of work boots, the sizes of work boots, all of this data wasn't even accessible on a basic scale. What I find is that Google can get very confused, and you can see it in the canonicalization. Even in very, how do you sort of build your programmatic SEO in a way that doesn't cause canonical issues? Because every time I've seen, so what I'm doing at Pagination, I'm trying to use AI to help us determine, so because Google isn't as smart as they think they are, and when you unfortunately have to do with large amounts of pagination, I'm trying to work to use AI. I'd love to build a tool that can sort of on the fly build out. Obviously, you want to have control and edit them so you don't have issues, and you want to make sure the search intent is aligned. But like, let's say like every kind of second, third row, bang, there's a content snippet explaining the products above.
Yep.
To create diversity in like if you're like going back to your example about the online offline world, if you're sitting in front of the jeweler and he's showing you 10 rings or 10 products, let's just say rings, right? Just make it easier. He's going to explain them, right? He's not just going to like show you just book after book after book after book with no variation. So I'm seeing in sort of like those super, like when you have a lot of products, the pagination gets so confused. So how do you overcome that in your programmatic SEO when if you have similarity
Yep.
in your blocks?
Two questions there was like, first one was about the canonicalization and how do you
Yeah.
ensure the pages don't become canonicalized. I think go back to basics and determine if that page actually requires, or that keyword requires an individual page. And a great way to actually determine that is if your competitors have built out a separate page for it, or if they have a title, like if the keyword that you're targeting, that page that have that exact keyword in that title and specifically targeting that, it's a very good signal that that page can, have its own sort of page without being canonicalized, particularly if, that group of keywords or your competitors seem to individually rank for those terms. That's a good signal that, it's quite safe to push that strategy. And there's other things you got to look at. Obviously, sites with a high authority obviously have a bit more leeway. And I will say that programmatic SEO works much better when you have an established brand and you actually already have domain authority. It is very difficult to do at scale,
Like Catch.
on a brand. Yeah, like if you're Catch and you're rolling out, a bunch of these, subcategory pages, it's obviously going to be a very different game than if you're a small SMB
100%.
ecom that maybe just started and you're scaling out hundreds of category pages. It's a different
But I think
level.
every site needs to work out how they can dynamically build content assets. I mean, to compete in like even with the workwear e-commerce, man. Like, I mean, there's so much data that we're not even allowing for accessibility. Here's the quality content that I kind of threw out the window. Quality content is so subjective, man. It's ridiculous.
It is.
So we were ranking first for popular work boots. Now the intern wrote the content. I just gave him the clusters to write about.
Yep.
Right? This article generated thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month.
Yep.
It wasn't fucking what's the name? What's that English writer? It wasn't Shakespearean quality, my friend. I can tell you.
Yeah.
It was just, hey, it's for tradies. They just want to know what's popular and the most comfortable work boots of 2023. Dude, I just gave them the cluster, told them what to write about, add products here, maybe add a video here, just simple guidelines. Now, this article ranked first and generated, like I'm talking between 6 to 10K every month. It took about 2 hours to write.
Yep. So that's the thing, right?
And it wasn't even quality. Tradies are lazy. Look, just stereotypically, tradies are lazy. They're not going to browse around a site at your fucking pagination down to the 20th page. Right?
They're busy, right? They're coming home from work. Maybe they've just ripped their boost. They want to just maybe the intent
stereotypically
is...
they're not tech savvy. They're not going to sit there. They want to watch Netflix and have dinner. You know what I mean? So that article, it wasn't written that well. It was unique. It was optimized perfectly for the user. At the end of the day, they just want to know what's the most. Just point me where I need to go for the most comfortable and popular work boot.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the article.
There's a lot of examples of that, right? Pages that are great, built from the ground up, far more in-depth detail than their competitors, and then there's just empty pages that don't provide any sort of value at all. It's just AI generated, but it's just keyword stuffed, NLP optimized, stuff with synonyms and fancy industry jargon, and that seems to rank far better than the highly optimized article. Like, there's so many examples of that. Exactly as you said. What's
the common denominator? Like you said, what you said was perfect. What's the common denominator between lower ranking content, quality, and I think it comes down to Google believing that the search intent is more aligned. Right or wrongly. What about you? Disagree?
I think intent's a part of it. But after the leaks, I think user signals are a massive part of it as well for these types of pages. How long they stay on the page. I think that falls into intent. I think you really got to say, if the intent's not aligned to the search term, people are going to bounce.
And how are you going to define intent, right?
I think that how else can they do it at scale? You've got to think how else can they possibly work out if a page is quality at scale without really diagnosing it? It's see what the user does. See what the user does. It's the best way. But I also think authority. Authority's the last one.
100% authority. But believe it or not, there were sites below us that had more authority.
I think yes, you can trump authority, but I think if that competitor did even half or
Yeah,
three quarters of what you did, I think you'll see them trump. And I think that's the thing ultimately.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Good points.
us in a like, I guess, you know, world now with AI content that, and it's getting good. Like you look at some of like the content that's coming out of Grok 3, Sonnet 3.7 that just released, it's good, right?
Mm.
And I think this think about like, the old saying goes like it's the worst it'll ever be. I think maybe people from a few years ago are still thinking, AI is just word for word and it can't, do any of these things, but it is seriously getting good for especially technical subjects. We've seen that with like OpenAI's like deep research. Um, I think seriously the value of content for certain industries has gone to zero. I think you look at you look at industry like work boots, the time and effort it's going to take to go and build out, hundreds of category pages versus AI doing it. There is a huge, huge, huge advantage of AI doing it. And then the question begs, okay, if AI is eventually going to get to or surpass a human level intelligence in content, and I think it's a safe assumption, right? Like if we see where like the deep research models are going and how in depth the content's getting and how they're citing all the resources, it's getting pretty good for at least the available content that they have to scrape, right? Potentially proprietary subjects, maybe data that's hidden behind paywalls, APIs, maybe not so much. But if it's publicly available, which for a lot of industries it is, the only thing that comes to mind that's going to separate these websites is authority. And I think we're seeing it already. I think, you're seeing it that the price of links has gone up, right? The difficulty to get these links, it's going up. I think we're already starting to see it. I can't see how we're going to move away from the link model if content is going to be so easy to generate, right? It's going to get to a point where, well, if I'm Google, well, why wouldn't I just use my Gemini engine to put it up at the top? And these websites are displaying that content anyway. How much longer
I,
is it?
I think it all comes back to the branding signals, mate. That's what's going to drive it. Like, do I? At the end of the day, if Google's got like a million sites it can deliver you, right? Authority, 100%. Hey, of course. But if you're finding how would Google look at a site that has massive amounts of social branding and engagement, legit engagement, like
Yeah.
one post, 700,000 views with 100,000 comments that
Yeah,
has no
I think it is a
SEO
factor.
authority?
I think
How
it
do you,
is
do you think that
a low factor though. I think, like
at the moment it's a low factor?
you
At
look
the
at like
moment
a
it's probably
social
zero
fortress.
factor. So,
You look at things like a social fortress, right? Like,
mhm.
don't get me wrong, like, it goes back to the whole debate of no follow and do follow. I think people sometimes think, no follows don't do anything.
No, they
I
do.
don't I disagree. I think they
I
definitely move
disagree.
I think they move the needle. And you look at bigger sites, right? Here's the thing.
I've got no
I think
follows from big sites.
you put it up recently that, your social media brands, look at the link profile that are linking to your social media
Hmm.
sort of like profiles and see if you can get
Hmm.
them pointed back to your site. But
Hmm.
those social media
Thank you for
profiles
reading my content.
read your content. So it beefs up it obviously beefs up that authority of that page if there's links going back to that social
Hmm.
profile. And if that social
Hmm.
profile is discussing your brand, it's like an entity, it's linking back in a lot
Hmm.
of the cases to your brand, there's value there. So I don't think social media is completely not worthy. I think it's important. And I think it may be more important in an LLM world, but we'll have to wait and see, right? Um, I just think even like I think digital signals, right? Google has the only digital signals to go off with brand. It's not going to know unless somebody's posted online. It's not going to know what billboards are on the bus stop or on the on the major
Of course. Yeah.
highways. It can only see digital signals, right? Um, and as part of any SEO campaign, I think like some sort of brand building exercise, whether that's through guest posting, link acquisition, getting resource links, getting links from your partners. That is all a branding exercise that I feel you cannot get away from now.
Mm.
Maybe, a few years ago you could roll off the back and purely do content and um, get away with it. But in any
I don't think
half competitive vertical,
no, I reckon. Well, the industries I worked in, like if you look at jewelry, fashion, workwear, you've always need the links, man.
yeah.
I mean, I haven't worked in an industry where you haven't. I
Mm.
mean, even in the last half decade, content
What
alone was never.
question? Oh, yeah, got two questions actually. First question is, why do you think link building is not as discussed as much as other elements of SEO as an industry as a whole?
In
When
Australia,
in
because
Australia or in
it's,
general, I think in Australia, let's stay with
I
Australia
think in
because
the UK it's still
Europe.
discussed a lot, but
I think digital PR is a bigger thing there, right? But here in
mm.
Australia, right, it's not a major talking point. Why do you think that
I
is?
honestly I think because, like you said, the cost of links is going up. It's not so easy to gain.
Mm.
Google's crushed down on private blog networks quite a bit.
Yep.
So a lot of the gamification of link building in yesteryear was it was there was a lot more you could do. I remember I used to argue when I was working at my agency where we just had where the head of strategy there we nearly literally came to physical blows, mate. Like
Yeah.
where he wanted to go down this sort of private blog network style, and I'm just like, this is just not a good idea for clients, right? We need to. I didn't have so much of a mature understanding of the of mixing branding with how does that sort of like, you know, email outreach. I knew of, but didn't sort of like practice a lot in 2008, 9, 10. Understanding, okay, here are some sites that are linking to your competitors. How can you approach these sites and give them a piece of content that's better, like the sort of the roadshow sort of strategy? All these are legit. I just think now that the budgets, I think staffing is a huge issue. To find people that even really know how to do link building in Australia is quite not great. If you can find SEOs that if you can find SEOs that can do link building well, they're going to want a lot of money, and so I just don't think is that like you said. I think you said it all. Or you've already said it. I think the bar in which to gain links is harder than ever before. The market understands the values of links. It's harder for agencies to scalably scale, because that's always the fucking buzzword, to scalably grow a link building package. I think many SEOs don't understand the power of branding to generate links, how to become a resource. It's not just even digital PR links. So again, going back with last and being the go-to person for Elle and for Vogue, these sort of highly relevant, highly authoritative sites, they don't want to just give you a link insertion for, you know what I mean? And if they do, it's going to cost like it's not easy to, it's not scalable. When we were featured on The Bachelor, we created something to get everyone to talk about, getting people excited about. That was able to do. So I just think it's really hard. It's not so easy to do the links. And I think link building ultimately down separates the kids from the adults, yeah, and within the space. And I think it requires a lot more marketing and business intelligence to build out sort of really powerful, meaningful link building that is not only scalable but sustainable. And I think, like, what I find with link building is the velocity is really important as well, and just brands fall over. And I think a lot of SEOs can hide behind big brands. Sometimes they've got a lot of backlinks and things, but I'm not impressed with someone that can take over a Bing Lee, even like myself back in the day, and get first for LEDTs. I'm looking more, hey, like taking a brand that's got $1 million of turnover and using SEO to build that up to 10 times the revenue. That for me is much more impressive than, hey, we just taken Bing Lee from 5 million a year with SEO to $20 million a year. Like, you've already taken a site that's already got the authority, like you said. And yeah, I think it's harder. I think Google's cracked down a lot of sort of the gaming tactics, and I think it requires a lot of outreach, a lot of effort, and a lot of sort of. I like my secret is tapping into good entrepreneurs, mate. So like, if you give me a good entrepreneur in a business that's got $1,000, I'd rather work with him with $1,000. I know James Norquay is not going to approve this message, but I would rather take his $1,000 a month than get me some blue chip client with more red tape than the Red Cross, and for $10,000 and not be able to do anything. Everything's going to go through this department, that department, this, that. Yeah. I think, how would you answer your own question?
Yeah. So question, I guess, was, why do I think links are not talked about as much in
Well,
the market? I think
sorry, did I answer that question or did I kind
you
of
did.
just...
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I think you definitely answered it. I just think because a lot of people are not good at it. I think like they don't wanna come into a campaign and say, okay, like, this is your link position, this is where your competitors are, this is what needs to happen on the campaign. I reckon sometimes transparency lacks, when in the like initial stages, everybody's doing whatever they can to get the sale, right? And I get that economy's tough. There's reasons for it.
Sure.
But my thoughts are like, you have that benchmark at the start. I think you know what the campaign's going to be moving forward. And it's a lot more easy to measure as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think like, I as you said, I think it's quite hard. It is quite hard. Like, there is all sorts of link marketplaces out there. The links don't really work. They're devalued, to an extent. You can see that by, it's not hard to work out if a link's been devalued. You could just have a look at the trend of the site itself. Have a look at, sites that it's linking from and look at the trend that they're going on.
Mm-hmm. It's hard work, man.
It's very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah.
I almost think, man, I actually think like marketplace links are a risk. Like, and hear me out on this. Like, we're talking about this at Chiang Mai SEO. And there was an interesting slide by a fellow that runs the conference, Cole. And what he said was that PBNs are safer than guest posts in 2025. That will be safer. Oof. I know, big claim, but I'm inclined to believe it. I'm inclined to sort of like say that I agree, and I'll tell you my reasons for it. If all these sites are just selling links to anybody that they can pretty much touch, and I mean like, they're selling links to like, if you're a site, if it's an Australian business and it's selling, gambling links to a casino in South Africa and then a slot machine in Thailand and all these places, the site's not on topic. It's just trying to take dollars. It's not topically relevant. It's talking about all these different subject matters when it has no authority in one given niche or specific vertical. I would think that maybe let's not even use the word PBN. Let's use maybe, old site that's been reestablished sites, right? Sites that maybe had some links and authority in a specific vertical. It's rebirthed into sort of a mini authority. And now with AI, you can make the site great. You can build it on, custom frameworks, and you can build out topical maps, and you can drip feed content that potentially used to rank for an Ahrefs historical keywords and get that ranking and only link out to authority sites and sites in that vertical. That's it. That to me feels a lot safer than maybe getting a link on these, because when money's involved and they're selling links, you have to assume that they're going to accept anybody. And when somebody comes along and offers, X amount of dollars for a link that's completely not going to be relevant.
It's not going to move the needle.
It's not going to move the needle. And in fact, it's probably going to hurt you and devalue all your efforts anyway.
But that's a good point, man. But and not all private blog networks are created equal, because the majority that I used to see.
Yeah, you know what? I will caveat that. A lot of people don't do it correctly. A lot of people don't do it. They don't know. I think
both. I mean, look. I mean, who am I? I mean, my opinion is, look, both are very risky. And I don't think most of it. I mean, PBN's a good business, and I think there's a reason. I think there's some reason for him to say that. Not because I don't know him, but I would say there's a reason. And sure, PBNs can, in some ways, be. I think he's using a very good example versus a very bad example.
Yeah, I think that's what you got to take the context, right? Most PBNs are done poorly.
90% of them are done poorly. And I would say, dude, that ranking in Chiang Mai is a different market. I can't speak to that market. I can't. So I'm going to plead ignorance on that one. I don't like talking about things I don't know what I'm talking about. But in Australia, in the Australian markets, when I work with brands, when we've built out a strategy to generate links the right way, and I mean in the right way, I'm not trying to sound holier than thou. When I build a machine for them to understand this is what's required to build links with velocity and that can generate the topical authority, etc. I just feel that's what's going to not only move the needle but keep you at 10,000 revs. I think if that private blog network, for whatever reason, when you pay for, if you pay for links at any scale, then that is ultimately, you are kind of like, it's a liability. You're kind of like, what's the end game here? Are you just going to be continually buying private blog? What happens if the site owners drop them? What happens? Even guest posting. I mean, I think guest posting, again, there's really, really bad examples. But how does Google know when a link's being paid or not? But
Doesn't. And this is, this is the issue. This goes back to the
it
issue
doesn't.
of
They don't know,
they
man.
don't know, right? They can only look at, okay, what are the signals that the site's sending? If it's linking out to all these groups of sites that don't make sense, like it's no good. If you're ever gonna, like, just for viewers out there, if you're ever gonna, like, use a network of sites, just never buy it, ever. Never, ever, ever buy a site network. Just don't do it.
That's
Because,
the
if
disclaimer
they're
here,
selling
man.
it, it's already lost its value. I think I agree. Like, it's not a holy topic. It's one that people don't want to talk about, right? That's why I wanted to touch on it with you.
No, yeah, I'll
Um,
talk about it till I'm blue in the face because I used
yeah,
to
yeah,
have these discussions a lot down, like with our head of strategy. Like I said, we didn't get physical blows over it.
yeah,
Now, his strategy got taken down. So in the end, I was vindicated.
yeah.
Now, does that mean that if anyone else done a private blog network, if they've done it better? I mean, I can't just assume.
Mm.
And I've seen private blog networks done well in the
I think
UK,
private blog networks, like,
but I just don't touch them.
there's two different types, right? There's
Maybe I'm
ones
too
that
old.
so what they were in, like, I think 2014, 2015, 2016, is they were like groups of sites that were all linked together. So you maybe
Yes,
have one
correct.
site and you had a link at the bottom, and it was
There
like
was no effort. There was
there
no
was
effort. They were even on
no,
the
it
same
was all on
server
the
half.
same template. It was all on the same IP address. It was all using the same whois data.
Oh, we
It
had the
all
C
had
block. Some of them had the C block IP sort of down pat, but like, but I don't even know whether. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I
Yeah,
won't cut you off.
even a C block IP, right? Like, I think it's still quite obvious that even if because if you're using the same provider, let's say you're using DigitalOcean or Vultr or whatever you might be using,
Hmm.
if you get a different IP, generally it stays in that same, like, range, unless you get it in a
Hmm.
completely different location. Then the
Correct.
like, maybe the A class will be different, is what you're
Mm.
after.
Mm.
But there's that old school private blog network where the sites are all linked together. And then there's, like, a different method, right? Is where you're actually trying to build a digital asset and turn it into a bit of an authority and actually provide value for the user. It's a big effort, right? And the reason you won't see people doing it is because it's a huge effort to do it. Massive effort.
It's
To
a
build out a
massive effort.
quality site on a custom template in a niche that, it maybe already has an established link profile in, that maybe it hasn't been, devalued with Wayback Archive, having a look, make sure it hasn't been turned into something silly in the past. You've got to do all these checks. Like,
Correct.
even before you even think about this method, there is a whole host of things that you need to make sure that it even meets all the quality signals. And that's
To
the
me,
reason I think people don't do it. It's time consuming. It requires a lot of technical knowledge, and it's a lot of trial and error to perfect.
yeah. And honestly, Diana, and I'm not trying, like, this might be an analogy that may offend some people. For me, it's like I watch a lot of mafia shows. If half these mafia guys actually build legit businesses, the amount of effort they go to build illegitimate businesses, it's just crazy. The amount of detail that they go into. I'm not saying that private blog networks is the same as organized crime, don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to use an analogy here that I just feel like, I think if you got your own affiliate sites, hey, my heart says, hey, you do whatever you got to do. Like, I'm no Google apologist here, right? Like, evangelist. I'm like, you just go do whatever you need to do to make your money, right? Who am I to judge you, right? On the affiliate side. But I think when I just come, maybe I'm old, maybe I've been in it for 20 years and now it's my weakness, no longer my strength. That's why I got to stay around people like you, Dayan. You've got the energy of, you got youth on your side.
We're hungry. We're hungry for those links, you know what I'm
You're
saying?
hungry, mate. You're like a fucking pit bull off its leash, mate.
Do Touche. Yeah, man. Look, it's
No,
not a strategy for everybody. Like, look, you got to assess your circumstances, right? If other people in that market are using this strategy and you
I
want to
just
compete,
always feel like you be playing toe to toe with the search, yeah. And I feel like
I feel
your
like it is that.
results,
Yeah, I think you're.
you
That's a. I want to lean into that. I want to hop onto
you
that because
you're basically always at even if the growth is like you can't see my hand going up, but you get it. But you're always kind of like in the back of your mind. I know Google isn't as smart as they think they are, but I would be feeling as well as a PBN could be done. Hey, with my Acai back in 2010, I should have done private blog networks. Right? I would have
But you got to
made
look at it
from
like this. You got to look at
I
it
would have
like
made
this,
from
right?
hundreds of dollars to thousands in months if I focused on that.
Yeah.
I wanted to even mate, like you should see my affiliate site. That's another discussion for another day. But I always feel like I'm on edge.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like, and I've done it before, I feel like I've helped clients at my detriment, my financial detriment, build a sort of understanding in a machine to say, it's hard to get links. But this is the model I think will work. And I kind of wouldn't want to do a talk about it because I don't necessarily want to give it away.
Yeah. Well, let's
but-
look at it like this, right? So, the thing is about it is it's got to be a diversified link portfolio. So
are you trying to talk me into private blog networks there?
I think I slightly already am. If you know what I mean. Like, look, like it's a diversified.
I send you my
portfolio.
ClickBank website, and you can do whatever you like with it.
Might have to talk after the podcast, mate. But basically, you got to look, right, because for the viewers listening, maybe they want a quick strategy of what could potentially work. Like sometimes, a site can get X amount far just by doing all the high quality citations in that vertical, right? You can get some
high quality citations as what?
High quality citation. I would break it down as niche relevant, local and local.
Yep.
So something that's local and something that's in your vertical, right?
Sure.
That is probably where you'd want to start if you're doing it. Where like you start going and building 300 citations and it's a directory out of the US, for industry Timbuktu that doesn't really hold much authority. That's not really going to help you, right? You want to send signals. You want to be strategic with how you do it. So that is one strategy that can get you so far, right? And I think just look around, like, you've got some partners, you've got people you work with. Everybody's got a little network that they know. It's not a private blog network. I mean, it's technically maybe its own little private blog in itself, right? Businesses that link to each other, that are established, that might know each other, that might recommend each other's services anyway in the offline world could make a good point, like to start somewhere. Obviously, reciprocal links, you don't want to do too many of them. Think about maybe 5 to 10 of your closest partners, and I'd cap it there. Then, okay, what are you really left with to do? Yes, you can go out and build link baitable assets, right? You can find, if X amount of sites are writing about this topic and you have, the best content on that, you could potentially do it. If a journalist is looking for something, statistics piece, who, what, when, where, type articles.
So you got like a mixture of strategies.
Mix the things. I still do think guest posting works, but not how it used to work. I think you've got to be very strategic and vet the sites well. So, like I said, all those things I mentioned previously, like, does the site, link out to this bad network? What's the ratio of incoming to
one of those clients, I want your view on this. One of these clients that got bought out from the US company that I'm doing some consulting work for, they had a manual action back in, I don't know if it was 2 years ago. I can't remember. So it's either 2 or 3 years ago. For me, a manual action, from what I've seen, because I've seen some horrible sites not get a manual action.
Yep.
Here's what my opinion is, and I want you to kind of like, I want you to have something different. Yep. I want to see other perspective. For me, to see a lot of bad sites that might have like 10,000 bad links, and this was just shit. This was just shit, right? I've seen 10,000 links just go under the radar, dodgy stuff go under the radar. This site had 27,000 spammy links from clear cut. Half of it was, well, I wouldn't say half, but one third of it's probably like Web 2.0 spam and shit like that. And others just like your classic good old fashioned classic link spam, right?
Yeah, got it. Like straight box, XROMA, just GSA
That
blasting.
that type
Yeah,
of
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So you had a bit of extra well, extra. Well, I mean, the X one. What is it called? They used to do a lot of Web 2.0 spam. But anyway, whatever.
X
Right?
Rumor? Yeah, yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah. No, not X-Rama. The other one. Fuck, what's it called? I used to know these tools. I don't. Anyway, doesn't matter. So it had a
No, yeah,
mixture
no.
of range of spam. What? Obviously, anyone can build spam for a competitor and try to negative SEO them, right? I gave them an answer of why I think necessarily they got hit, and other sites that I see that might still have something similar, but go under the radar. Why do you feel some sites will go under the radar, considering that Google can know that there can be a negative SEO attack?
Yeah. I think Google said on this, right? They're like, we ignore bad links. Like we ignore
Correct.
spam link. They've come out and said that.
Yeah,
In paraphrasing, but in different forms.
sure.
What is scary is like if you think about negative SEO and how it's harming that site, what is scary is sustained poor links. So what am I talking about? I mean, the people that maybe they're just getting into the industry and they see the price of a link over here is like $1,000 for one link. They're like, why would I do that? Then they see on Fiverr, hey, I can get 5,000 links for $10. Woo, I'm winning. And I think doing that blast once, I think maybe you'll get away with it. Sustained blasts.
So you think a
Sustained.
negative SEO attack with sustained blast could get a site down?
Potentially, right? Because
Pending
if
the
you think
authority
about
of
it,
those domains.
depending the authority, potentially, right? I haven't tested that, but I have an ongoing theory. I'd love to test it on one of my own sites where I just blast it with just poor links and see what happens. Because if you think about it, like sustained poor links, that can't be good. Like if you're sending, and here's the thing, I'm not talking about, completely non-relevant links. I'm talking about exact match anchor type spam. So for example, like what you'll see with negative type links is somebody thinks, oh, I'm going to hit them with, I'm going to hit this, let's use jewelry with like a bunch of, adult links, right?
Yeah,
And I'm going to
sure.
have these. That's not the way you would think Google would hit you. Google would hit you if you're actively trying to manipulate the SERP. So if you're using exact match anchors from all these poor quality sites and you're doing that as a sustained period, right? Say I'm doing one of these blasts every week and I'm doing it for 6 months and I'm using different variations of exact match anchor texts. That surely can't be good. Scary thing is you might initially get a boost, but the chickens will come home to roost on that. And then it makes you really think, like,
I've done some
if
tests.
yeah, if that sounds like potentially could hurt you, well then every site's vulnerable because it doesn't take much to do that to any site. And that's
It
a
was
scary
20,000.
thought.
I mean, 27. You can build 27,000 broken links with XROMA quite quickly.
Quite quickly and quite cheaply too. You can just go on a marketplace and buy that right now, right? So um,
I mean,
the fact that it's anybody can do it to you, to us building like legitimate brands, Omega Digital, Shuffle, anybody could just hit us with that. Scary thought.
well, I want to know I mean, yes, I understand what Google says, but I'm trying to understand what Google says, Google does. Yeah, sometimes.
I get why they also had to crack down on it too, because if anybody could do it, like if it's too easy to do, then every site, every business
Well,
model, right?
that's the whole point of my question. It's like, where's the barrier? Where's the boundary? Because between understanding that I can just do a negative attack with enough money.
Mm,
So, and I think what you mentioned at the very start about brands having leeway, I think
definitely,
that's
definitely.
definitely plays a huge
Oh
part.
man, have you seen what's happened with the parasite SEO? How like there's certain sites, that have no authority. DR90s. Google said they're going to crack down on this back in May. I think eventually they did manual action a few sites.
Mm.
I forget what the exact name of the update was, but it basically targeted large publishers that were publishing,
I know for the
paying,
first
getting,
couple of times we're outranking Reddit a few times, which is very unusual.
yeah, Reddit as well popped up
Yeah.
massively this year. But not just Reddit, right? It was publications. It was like your Outlook Indias. It was like your Forbes. It
Yeah.
was these sites that got huge growth at the expense of smaller sites. But I think
Yeah.
in general, what you'll find is that there's a trend to authority. Like, look at the last 3, 4 years of updates, right? Which sites have performed well constantly? right? Go and look at the SERPs. Go and look at who was ranking 3 or 4 years ago. Go look now. Like there is a clear trend towards favoring these authority sites.
Yeah.
I can't see that changing. Make the best content you want. If the content is not amplified, and it's not got that, social traction links pointing back to it,
Well, one of the
social
previous
links
clients,
pointing back to it.
yeah, I mean, one of the
It's gonna be
previous
tough.
clients we had, mate, was how much should you spend on an engagement ring, which is a very popular term. And we had we did the right thing. We had the original research, we had the data analyst involved. I didn't do this because Google said to do it, but we did exactly the blueprint. The
Yep.
original research, the data citation. We gave a reason for ANZ, for Westpac to cite us and link to us.
Yep.
Well, Westpac didn't. And one of the guys at the SEO of Conference 2024 came up to me and said, "You're Andrew, you try to pitch us with linking to your client." He just came up to me out of the blue. At the SEO conference last year, said, "Oh, sorry, we couldn't do it." I said, "Well, don't take my client's content, mate. Then I won't come after you."
Yep.
So don't take these citations or his data and then not link to him. So it was a bit of an awkward conversation. I'm Captain Awkward. But yeah, we did it. It's very hard to kind of get onto that first page where people want to use your data. Once you get on the first page and people start wanting to cite you, because we didn't just do your normal 3 months salary, that's what you should spend, like the same regurgitated bullshit, but we did the blueprint of.
Sometimes you got to amplify it, right? Sometimes the way to do it is pay for ads to get that. If you're not ranking there and you know that it's a linkable ad, you got to pay for the
content
you gotta pay to
promotion
be there. Like
exactly.
and to get that initial traction of the links, like sometimes it's just got something you just got to bite the bullet on and budget for it. Budget that 4 to 6 months is
Unfortunately,
going to
it
be.
wasn't ever. Yeah, 100%, dude. It wasn't evergreen content, so
Makes it
the
tougher.
links velocity sort of died off.
Yep.
But in 2020, what was it? 2020. Yeah, 2024. We did it in 2023. We just updated the data a little bit in 2024. Republished the date that Google doesn't like, but we did put new content in it, republished the date, bang, straight up again. So, but unfortunately, we didn't have the link velocity, so just people weren't taking our data. But I would say that model for me was, hey, like there needs to be a strategy to get onto the first page. It's like soccer, man. You got to get promoted to be in the big league. Once you're in the big league, then you get the deals and the players and the opportunities. You don't want to be in Division 3 or page 3. So it's like you said, it's tough. Whether it's paid ads, whether you're link building, whatever you're kind of doing to kind of get up there. But articles. But the popular work boots example, I didn't do shit. I didn't build any links. I didn't do nothing. It wasn't even good content. And it was generating 60.
Competition is a thing, man. Like, for something that maybe people are just, if you're early on something, and like you can get there and just, if everybody's just got standard category pages and you've got a fully optimized page of it, I think you'll do well.
I think the page with the work boots example, the page got first, and there was competitors doing it. There was our vicious competitors at More Authority. They picked up on it, or the SEOs did. And I'll let you go very soon. I could talk about this until I fucking blow up the face with you, man. But yeah, like I think it was just Google, like the rank brain kicked in. Like everyone was bang, clicking on it, bang, bang, staying on it, clicking on it, buying. Hey, Google can see all that, right? Why drop us? We were meeting the intent. The customers were happy. They weren't bouncing. They were staying on the site. They were buying our products. At the end of the day,
I'll wrap up with this.
You wrap up with it.
Wrap up with this one. So, content content period of peak performance, right? 9 to 15 months. 9 to 15 months, right?
I agree.
After that, chances are if the site's pages perform well, the competitors have had enough time to copy it, release a similar strategy. Not if you've got a date marked as well, people start looking at it it's a bit old, like 2+ years as well. Can affect your CTR. But it's just that point that it just doesn't perform as well. It just doesn't seem to do well past that point without some sort of a refresh. So I think in that example, these are the page and a good strategy of content overall is pages that already have backlinks, pages that once perform well. These are the ones that the effort should be pointed on. These are the ones that should be refreshed. These are the pages that, you should be thinking, okay, how can I internally link from other pages that maybe have recently got links to sort of send
100%, dude.
Like, There's
Yeah,
so many
100%.
things you can do in SEO, right? But what really separates somebody that really can drive forward a campaign versus maybe someone that's maybe just getting into it, maybe hasn't got as much experience as yourself, Andrew, is knowing what the next thing to do to move the needle. At that 80-20, that, hey, I know if I put 80% of the work in this, 20% of the work in this little thing, I get 80% of the boost. That is what's going to separate, I think, this industry. I think when we're moving now into a space where there's not going to be enough room for everybody in the market. It's probably one of the first times that we've seen it. There's a lot of businesses offering SEO, and I think with AI, they're going to be able to service more clients at a same productive level. I think we're going to see big changes. I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. I reckon the game will change in the next 2 to 3 years, whether anybody likes it or not. It's my personal opinion.
I think so. It always changes.
But I think it's going to change in an unprecedented way over the next 2 to 3 years. Something that we haven't seen in decades.
Sure.
And I think for anybody that's in the industry that loves it maybe as much as us, Andrew, and that can adapt to it and execute it, it's going to crush it. So I'm bullish. I'm pessimistic
Clearly.
in the current form it is, but I'm bullish where it's going. And
I've enjoyed the debate, Dan.
yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
It's been fantastic, mate. I love the energy, love the passion. I've got a soft spot for you because I see a little bit of me and you, mate. So I see the good things anyway. Now, listen, if you want to listen to Darren speak, get your tickets to SEO Sydney conference. I promised James that I would keep plugging it. But I think it's just coming for listening to Darren talk about programmatic SEO, and maybe even in the drinks afterwards, Darren and I sort of getting into it again.
Just come up to us if you're there. We'll kick off where we left off.
Yeah,
If there's any
absolutely.
questions
Well,
you heard today.
Listen, Shuffle Digital 1300 764 736 and shuffledigital.com.au.
Andrew Glintos, Omega Digital X. Omega
It's
X.
it's not befitting to plug your own thing. Thanks so much, my man.
No
It's
worries,
been
mate.
an absolute pleasure to have you. Let's do this again. This was fun.
Feelings mutual, mate. Appreciate your time. And yeah, love the chat. Let's go. Let's get session.